to 2017.
It is the privilege of the outgoing president to hand over power, the same way I handed over power, and the Somali population has the same right and privilege as well. I thank you all, and peace of Allah be upon you all.
In Mogadishu, residents celebrated with the anticipation of a better future. The new administration has its priorities, with corruption being a key challenge.
The president must fight corruption, among other priorities, including being a responsible and trustworthy leader who must serve as an example of virtue for the entire government to ensure that the country is free of corruption.
Supporters are hoping Mahamoudi's experience will give him an advantage in tackling Somalia's problems. Ahmed Dini, a founding member of the Somali Peaceline organization, an organization that works for conflict resolution, believes the new president will make good use of his second chance in the office.
As the new president, he has the advantage of having already ruled the country, so he understands where we have stagnated and where we have improved.
On the streets of Mogadishu, people expressed optimism about Mahamoudi's leadership, with many seeing him as one who deeply understands the country's history and complexities.
While in office from 2012 to 2017, he made great strides in creating federal state institutions, and now he has achieved a great deal so far. So we expect him to complete the remaining work. We are confident in him and trust him.
Mahmoud has received notice of congratulations and pledges of support from world leaders. In a brief speech, he promised to unite the country and work together with all levels of government. Mohammed Sheikh Noor for VOA News, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Somalia's new president Hassan Sheikh Mohammed told VOA his top priority will be to restore security, ending the political infighting that has crippled Somali institutions. President Mohammed spoke to VOA Somali reporter Falastin Iman in Mogadishu.
My vision is Somalia in peace with itself and in peace with the rest of the world. That was the motto and the slogan that we had. Other than that, we have certain priorities to make sure that we achieve. The top priority, the top number one, number two, number three priority is the security. We need to see a secure Somalia, Somali state or government that can take the full responsibility of the security of its people. We believe that we have a big agenda of transformation in Somalia, but we cannot implement that agenda unless we make sure that the Somalia is safe and secure. That's number one. Number two, next to that is the political stability of the country. We don't want the political infighting within the government, the center and the periphery fighting, or institutions fighting each other. So political stability and security of the people, particularly the movement of the goods and the people throughout Somalia, is a top priority for us. Safe Somalia, secure Somalia is a safe region in the Horn of Africa, so that we, by eliminating the menace of Al-Shabaab, does not mean only security in Somalia or eliminating one problem of Somalia. It's a regional problem, international problem that's being solved.
That was a new Somali president Hassan Sheikh Mohammed speaking to VOA. Mass displacement due to drought and conflict is resulting in devastating food insecurity in Ethiopia's Afar region. The drought is pushing families to the brink of starvation. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
The Afar region in Ethiopia is facing multiple humanitarian emergencies. In addition, the drought threatens to throw the population, especially in arid and semi-arid areas, into starvation. Local authorities say an estimated 1.7 million people in 23 areas are affected by drought and conflict. The latest local government figures estimate that over 750,000 people have been displaced since the beginning of 2020. In Dubet, a hospital where it's receiving referrals from across the region, the number of severely malnourished children admitted continues to rise, from 5 cases a week in January to 35 patients a week in May, a 600% increase.
We treat children by using ready-to-use therapeutic feeding program, and it is life-saving, and it is helping us a lot. On top of that, for admitted patients with complicated cases, we give milk and other medications.
In close coordination with the local authorities, UNICEF is working tirelessly to provide life-saving assistance to those desperately in need, screening, treating severely malnourished children, and providing emergency education and child protection support.
In Afar, we are tackling, of course, addressing the water and sanitation needs. We're building latrines in camps. We're bringing water either by water tracking or drilling new boreholes or rehabilitating boreholes that have been destroyed. We're trying to bring also education and protection through an integrated program called BETE. So we try to hire teachers and social workers for them, for children to have access to psychosocial support, but also, basic education, because for months and months they missed out on education.
The Horn of Africa is experiencing perhaps one of the most severe droughts in 40 years. Authorities warn that higher temperatures and less than average rainfall were recorded by weather agencies in March and April this year. East Africa's economic mainstay is rain-fed agriculture, making it vulnerable to extreme weather events. Approximately 1.4 million children under 5 in the Horn of Africa are vulnerable to acute malnutrition. Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia have received reduced rains, and this has severely impacted them, and they are already in a dire need for food. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Ethiopia has agreed to a reconstruction and recovery grant with the World Bank. The grant will be used to rebuild basic services in conflict-torn regions of the country. David Doyle reports.
The World Bank has agreed a $300 million grant with Ethiopia. That's according to the Horn of Africa country's finance ministry, which said the funds would be used to help with reconstruction and recovery in conflict-hit areas. Fighting erupted in the northern Tigray region in November 2020 and spilled over into neighbouring Afar and Amhara last year. Though there are still sporadic reports of fighting, the war has eased since a unilateral ceasefire by the federal government in March. Ethiopia's finance ministry said in a statement late on Monday the World Bank grant would be used for activities designed to support basic services, education, health and water supply in particular. It added that a special effort would be made to assist survivors of gender-based violence in conflict zones. Areas in Tigray, Amhara and Afar are targeted to receive funds, the government said, as well as the regions of Oromia and Benishangul-Gumuz. Violence in Oromia and Benishangul-Gumuz, which are home to several ethnic groups, is separate from the war in Tigray. The government said it would sign up with third-party organisations to execute the project in high-conflict areas.
David Doe of Reuters filed that report. Kenyan residents face soaring costs of living amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The rising cost of some basic commodities has nearly doubled in 1 year. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is being blamed for disrupting world economies, but economists say Kenya's situation is induced by the tax regime. Victoria Munga has more from Nairobi.
Patrick Oduor is picking items on his shopping list in this grocery store in Nairobi. Oduor says, unlike in the past, he's forced to cut back where he can to at least afford the basics.
Kwa saizi bei ya bidhaa iko juu kulinganisha na hapo awali. Juu hapo awali ilikuwa kama mafuta, ukiangalia hapa mafuta ilikuwa less than 200, 1 liter. But now it's 400. So ukilinganisha unapata iko 100%.
He's among millions of Kenyans facing rocketing prices of items. A March 2022 survey by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics shows that the cost of living soared to its highest in the year. March inflation came in at 5.6%, up from 5.1% in February. Fuel prices have risen, with the cost of petrol increasing to over 134 Kenya shillings, an equivalent to $1.16, compared to about 123 Kenya shillings, an equivalent to $1.06 previous year. Motorists like Baraka Chege say they have to dig deeper into their pockets to stay on the road.
For this car, I would do about 3K and it would be full, but now I have to do about 4,500. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, bro.
Kenya's energy regulatory authorities say the average cost associated with shipping is the root of the escalating fuel prices in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war. According to authorities, the average cost of imported super petrol increased by over 20% to $814 a litre in February. Diesel increased by nearly 25% to $844. Economists say that the prices are majorly as a result of new taxes.
Starting somewhere in 2017, we noticed that Parliament, through the finance bills that come from the National Treasury, started tweaking some of our taxes, especially for some of the common products that were zero-rated or that were exempted completely from any taxation. And some taxes started being introduced to them. You remember the fuel one, trying to introduce the 16% VAT to fuel was a very good example in 2017-2018.
Kenya's Energy Regulator Director General Daniel Kiptos said in a media briefing that the state is chipping in the Petroleum Development Levy to cushion Kenyans from otherwise high prices. Locals took to social media in February to protest against the cost of living with the hashtag lower food prices. But to date, the situation has not changed. Some told VOA that they're even cutting their budgets on meals.
We no longer have like the breakfast, lunch, or 10 o'clock tea. We are forced to take late breakfast, late lunch, and that is it.
November 2021 national data shows that Kenya's economy expanded by 10.1%, but locals here say they are yet to feel the growth at personal levels. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
We'd like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. On Fridays, Africa 54, Heather Maxwell catches up with Paris-based jazz musician Alun Word. Still to come, South Africa's first black hot air balloon pilot takes flight. We'll be back. Libya's parliament-appointed Prime Minister Fadi Bashagha tried to take over the government in Tripoli on Tuesday, but was forced back by a rival administration that refuses to cede power. Bashagha's office says he entered Tripoli overnight Tuesday, but withdrew as fighting rocked the capital. Bashagha's rival and the head of the country, Tripoli-based Abdul Hamid al-Dibaiba, toured parts of the city hours after the clashes to survey the damage. The crisis raises fears that Libya could be pushed back into prolonged fighting after 2 years of comparative peace. Libya has had minimal security since a 2011 NATO-backed uprising that ousted Muammar Gaddafi.
It was unfortunate and irresponsible behavior. There are many innocent people who lost their lives and were terrified. He put us in a very, very odd situation. The very solution for this conflict is holding elections.
It is the ordinary people like us who pay the price for what is happening in Libya. Because if a person dies, whether they are from this party or that party, we are the ones who lose, because the person who died is Libyan. The ones who will be devastated will be the person's mother and father. Those who are fighting for power can go fight in the desert until they are tired of fighting. And we will welcome whoever comes back victorious.
After a period of relative calm and stability, Tripoli citizens say they do not want the city to slide back into tension. For more on the past struggle in Libya, joining me live via Skype from Washington, D.C. is VOA journalist Hassouna Baishu. Hassouna, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
So what triggered these latest political clashes in Libya?
Well, the story goes back into February 2021 when Dbeiba was actually made prime minister by an ad hoc UN body. Only he was supposed to stay in power until the election. Now, the election were postponed for so many reasons. I'm not going to get into it right now. But he refused ever since to cede power, and he continued in his position. What the parliament did in the eastern part of the country, they voted on a new prime minister, that is Fathi Bashar. And that's why he tried to assume his position from Tripoli. He tried to enter the capital, and the clashes took place. Another reason I could actually mention very quickly, Fathi Bashar, he made an alliance with another controversial figure in the western part of the country, that is General Khalifa Haftar, who tried to take over the country back in 2019. And there was a war, as you know, in 2019, and people did not approve that alliance. That's why pretty much the clashes took place in Tuesday morning.
So who gets the final say? Who gets to decide who is going to lead the people of Libya?
Well, this is very complicated question. It's a lot to unpack here. What I can tell you is that all of the political institutions right now in Libya are trying to stay in power as they actually completed their mandate, technically, right? We're talking about the parliament, we're talking about the High Council of State, that's another advisory body. We're talking about Dbeiba's government. All of these institutions completed their mandate, and what they're trying to do is to stay in power and try to come up with a pretext to continue in this transitional period. What people actually want right now is to go to elections so they can finish and settle this question of legitimacy. So it's extremely difficult to know who is actually get to say, the final decision in Libya.
And briefly, who are Libyans? What are they saying about all this political stalemate?
There's definitely a division between Libyans about the stalemate. But what I can tell you about that particular incident is that people were scared, definitely. Kids were terrified. School suspended. Flights were canceled. There's only one airport in the capital, Tripoli, and those flights that day were canceled. Public and private property were damaged. So what people actually want right now, they want to gain their political right again, and they want to vote and choose their leaders, just like any democratic country, and that's what they have been struggling for since 2011.
Hassouna, thanks. Hassouna Baishu is a VOA journalist and a native of Libya. A women's cooperative in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo finds success selling thousands of bars of soap made from coffee. Africa 54 managing editor Vincent McCory explains.
If you're a fan of the smell of a fresh brew in the morning, then this might be the soap for you. It's made from coffee by a women's cooperative in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it's a product that has been a big success, says Heshima Coffee's founder, Solange Kwidja Kahiriri.
It takes about 3 weeks to make the coffee soaps. We make about 5,000 soaps in a week. For now, our soaps can be found in 5 provinces in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Kahiriri used to work in communications, but was introduced to the coffee industry by a client. In 2018, she founded the entrepreneurship group in Congo's east. She says it has created a source of income for 1,500 women and young people.
It's not an easy job for women. If you look at the coffee sector, there are not many women. Women only work in the fields, but are part of the commercial process. It's still very much a male-dominated field.
The cooperative produces coffee as well as the soaps. It gives out free coffee plant seedlings and connects members to fair trade buyers once beans have been harvested and processed. The soaps are made at a Heshima-owned factory in Bukavu. 100 women work there, among them Maman Zimire.
I am able to put food on the table thanks to this association, so it is very good.
There are challenges. Kahirere says poor road infrastructure for transporting coffee beans, regular electricity outages, and a lack of funding are the main issues. She says they could do even greater things if they had more financial support. Vincent Makori, VOA News.
Blind South Africans are challenging an apartheid-era law that prevents books from being easily printed in Braille, the written language for the blind. Critics say the law is making thousands of books inaccessible to blind people, affecting their education and job prospects. Zahia Kasim reports from Johannesburg, South Africa.
In the book famine for the blind. That's the message these South Africans want to convey to the country's highest court. Two non-profits, Blind SA and Section 27, are in the Constitutional Court to challenge a 44-year-old copyright law that blocks the conversion of books into Braille, a system of touch reading for the blind without the permission of the publishers. Currently, less than 0.5% of published works are available in accessible formats to the blind in South Africa.
For the last 44 years, blind people's rights have been violated. And in democratic South Africa, for 28 years, we are being stifled. For how much longer can this continue? The injustices must stop, and it has to stop now.
Blind activist Tandile Butana has had her struggles with this law. She has completed a university degree in social sciences, but has delayed her master's degree because of the difficulty of getting textbooks translated into Braille.
Unfortunately, we cannot contribute positively to the economy of the country if we are not educated, and education depends on the accessibility of books.
During her undergraduate studies, she would have to pay other students to read the textbooks out to her. Now, the same copyright law is affecting her ability to help her son with his homework.
Me not having books that are accessible for my needs, it makes me less of a mom. I can't help him on my own.
Her struggle is not isolated to South Africa's blind community. It's a problem for most visually impaired people in Africa. The World Blind Union, the WBU, estimates blind people on the continent only have access to 1 and 7% of books. The Marrakesh Treaty, which allows for the exchange of accessible format books across international borders, has been signed by a number of African nations. Jackson Agufana, Chief Executive of Kenya Union of the Blind, says a positive ruling in South Africa could have implications across the continent and put pressure on other countries to join the Marrakesh Treaty.
And I think it will accelerate the pace of other countries, especially countries in the Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Central, West Africa, and put pressure on governments to ensure that majority of them who have not ratified the treaty are able to do so, and those who have ratified and domesticated are able to accelerate the pace of implementation of the treaty so that majority of visually impaired people can access books.
South Africa's Constitutional Court has yet to issue its ruling on the copyright law. No one is sure when a decision will be handed down, but South Africa's blind community is hopeful the ruling will be a positive one and open up a new world of content for the visually impaired. Zahia Kasim for VOA News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
We're staying in South Africa, where a 27-year-old South African is the first black hot air balloon pilot and one of few female pilots in the field. She says what used to feel unattainable is now part of her weekly routine. Semakaleng Matebula expertly fires up the burner, aims a giant blue-orange flame toward the multicolored balloon, and watches as it fills with hot air and begins to lift off the ground. Matebula was awarded a scholarship to receive her pilot training from the Department of Sport and Recreation and the Balloon and the Airship Federation of South Africa. And now she earned her license last year. She's scheduled to compete for the first time in the South African Hot Air Balloon Championship in June. Way to go, Matebula. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.